Hello everybody and welcome to LRRTech for this thing right here, the chat, which is there. I probably won't leave that up on screen all the time, but I just wanted to show you what kind of stuff it does. So for instance, you can see the highlighting of loading ready run is actually a special thing that shouldn't necessarily happen. But anyway, so a couple things that people might be interested in. I guess I could put on. I don't know if there's any point to me wearing headphones, but I could do that so I can at least hear myself. Wait, I can hear myself anyway. So yeah, a couple things. One of the things that people were asking about is that it scrolls from the top instead of the bottom. So anyway, just so you know, to catch people up, this is what the chat looks like on our chat monitor. So like on the big monitor that we have at Desert Bus. In the big monitor we have now in our AFK studio that we look at for checkpoint, and we look at for AFK stuff and sometimes for magic stuff and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a couple of reasons why, a couple of things about how it works. So for one thing, it goes backwards, or at least backwards from probably what you're used to. And the reason for that is I guess this is a little narrow. Yeah, this is actually, it probably should be a little wider. Here, I'll make it a little wider. Whoop. It's probably more like that. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. You know what, I might as well just hide that, just so it doesn't get too distracting. Okay. So one of the reasons why, one of the things about it is that it goes backwards, at least from the perception of the normal chat. And the reason for that is that the chat monitor is underneath the camera, either sometimes over to the side a little bit, but it's sort of not necessarily like right on the ground, but it is below the camera, the main camera. And so I noticed in the first year we had the chat monitor, I noticed that when we were watching it at home, everybody was doing like looking down like this a lot of the time, and that's because they were looking at the bottom of the chat monitor in order to, you know, see to read the chat, the new stuff coming out. And I was thinking that looked kind of crappy. So so by reversing the direction of it, it means that the new stuff is at the very top, which means it's as close as possible to the camera. So it makes people look more at the camera level. So that's why we do that. I guess theoretically the other solution would be to put the chat monitor above the camera, but at least for Desert Bus, the chat monitor we use is really big. It's like a 50-inch flat panel, and not like a new 50-inch flat panel. It's like a old plasma display. So it is quite weighty. I would not want to have it that high up. So yeah, today I'm hoping to do a couple things. So first thing I'm going to do is go through how to actually set up the monitor, basically as you saw it there, for yourself. If for some reason, if you want to set it up like that for you to have it, you know, for your own, either for just watching the stream or for, you know, your Desert Bus viewing bunker or whatever. The other thing that I want to do is I'm just gonna go through the actual code for how how it actually works. And depending on your knowledge of JavaScript and CSS, that might be sort of a little bit complicated, but I'll try to keep it relatively simple. And also with an idea towards that you can customize it however you want. So what you see on screen here, boop, is not necessarily, you know, that's what we've sort of landed on for our use case. But obviously your use case is probably going to be a little different than ours. So theoretically, everything about the chat can be customized to your own needs, right? And then, if we have time, I hope that something that I'm really interested to do is this chat monitor currently, or the chat system currently, is set up to be based on it reformats the Twitch chat, but it reformats the I guess the current Twitch chat. And if you are a frequent Twitch user, Twitcher, it's probably not right. If you're a frequent Twitch user, you probably have noticed that Twitch has begun rolling out their new beta layout, their new beta system, which I assume is better for some reason. I don't entirely know what the difference is, but I assume it's better for them, at least, if not for us. And so the current, because how the chat monitor works is that it reformats, it looks for certain sort of keywords or tags in the chat and reformats it. It does not currently work with the beta Twitch chat, because the beta Twitch chat is formatted completely differently, even though it looks basically the same. Just to look at it, the HTML on the back end is actually totally different. I think they're using a totally different framework for actually inserting their HTML, or a new version of the framework or whatever. So I was thinking that if we have time, maybe I can take you through at least part of the process of what one might do if you want to do something similar to this for the new Twitch chat. And what's kind of neat about this, so what we're going to be using here is a technology that was originally called Grease Monkey, because it's like, it does difficult work, I guess. I don't know. And the sort of, I guess, the new version of it, or the current system that we're going to be using is called Tamper Monkey. But it basically is the same idea. Basically what it is that when you look at it, when you load a web page, you load up all the information about the web page, the various files, the images, the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript. And for very, very important and very reasonable and critical security reasons, there are restrictions about what JavaScript can be loaded on the page and how that JavaScript can interact with things, because you wouldn't want, say, you don't want to be able to, you don't want to go to some random web page and have that web page be able to load your banking information in the background or something terrible like that. So the browser has something called a security sandbox that web pages run in, and a while ago, somebody came up with this idea of Grease Monkey, which is basically breaking that sandbox, but breaking it in a specific user-defined way. So it's basically saying it's an extension for the browser that says, that security sandbox that you have is great, but in specific situations that I authorize, I'm going to break that sandbox and allow you to run code that modifies the web page that you're on in unexpected ways, or in ways that the web page that you're on didn't originally expect, I guess you could say. And so what this allows you to do is modify the behavior of a web page on your side. So rather than say like in this instance, say you want the Twitch chat to look in a certain way, you don't have to bug Twitch to be like, hey, could you add this feature? You can actually modify it yourself and change it. Yeah, and as Anubis 169 says, Better TTV uses a very similar situation to what we're doing, except Better TTV, I think, actually doesn't actually modify the Twitch chat in the same way as we're doing. I believe Better TTV actually completely replaces the Twitch chat with their own Twitch chat implementation, using their own server as like a relay server. So it's slightly different, but yes, similar idea. So let's quickly first thing we're going to do is just I'm just going to show you how to actually install this software. So the cool thing about Grease Monkey and Tamper Monkey can use to do all sorts of things. So this little script that we're doing today, obviously it's going to modify the Twitch thing, but you can do basically anything you want to any web page you want. So there's all sorts of, I mean, obviously there's scripts you can get that will like remove the ads from a web page or something. But that, that's a fairly minor thing. One of the cool stuff you can do, for instance, I don't have it here, but I have a script running on my home computer for 18 games and counting that automatically highlights the 18th game in the Twitch directory in yellow, so I don't have to count because I'm lazy that way. Yeah, actually, you can see the chat monitor there in that picture that Evil Badman just posted. The system that we're going to use is a bit of an upgrade from what we used last year, but yes. Okay, so let's look at here. If I just go right corner here. So all the code that we're going to be working with today is up on my Git repo, which I'll copy here. Let me actually just quickly dump that into the chat, although I think people should already see it there, but so that's my Git repo. There's theoretically anything that I'm going to release publicly in terms of code is going to be there. At the moment, the only other thing that's there is the card recognizer software, which I've talked about before. Also, for those of you subscribing, sorry, I haven't. I think what I'll do is I'll do all the sub welcomes afterwards, just because while I'm working on this stuff and sort of doing the tutorial things, I don't want to kind of lose my train of thought doing sub welcomes. But thank you very much, everybody, for subscribing. Okay, yes. Nifty chat monitor. Keeping up with my nifty naming scheme. Okay, so as it says here at the top, it does not currently work with the new Twitch beta chat. Perhaps we can fix that, or at least partially fix that over the course of the day. So we're going to go down here to installation. How to install it. So we're going to go load up Tamper Monkey. So this is just an extension. There's versions of it for Chrome, for Firefox, and for Safari, I think. And I think also for Edge. Yeah, for Microsoft Edge as well. So yeah, hopefully whatever browser you're using, there's a version of Tamper Monkey, or possibly a similar thing. As far as I know, this script should also work with the actual Grease Monkey implementation as well. I haven't tested that, but I believe they use the same system. Spotted a typo. Yeah. I would not be surprised if there is a typo. Or 2 or 5. Okay, so you can see up in the corner here, got these little square with eyes here. Looks kind of like the superintendent from Halo Reach. But anyway, so let's open that up. Say open the dashboard. Currently we don't have any scripts installed, so we're going to click on the plus here, and we're going to go chatmonitor.js, and we are going to select this and paste it in there, and then we're going to save. And now it's installed. So pretty straightforward for the installation. So now if we go to, say, twitch.tv/loadingrerun/chat, and then, so if we go to twitch.tv/loadingrerun/chat, there's the standard chat. And I've set this up as a what's called a you activate it via what's called a query string, which is just if you ever see like question mark and then some text at the end of a URL they're going to, that's a query string. And the reason why I set it up using that is to make it so you can access the chat normally if you want. Like, you don't have to turn off Tamper Monkey to access it normally. So yeah, so if you go add, you can see right up here, I'm going to add display to the URL. And now it's big. It says, welcome to the chat room. And then if people actually type things, see, yay. And so now you see by default, so this right here is an image link, but by default it's not being inserted. And you notice also it is going the correct way right now, or the way that, see, that's because there's a couple of sort of configuration lines that you can have. And how you do that is by adding things to the URL here. So right now we're saying display, so we want the display. And if we say and img, now we're telling it to implement the inline image function. I didn't implement that. I didn't tell it to do that by default because it can be kind of distracting, and especially if you aren't expecting it, it can be a little surprising. But now you can have a picture of me spinning. So yeah. Now, and you can see did we do a desert bus thing that was just like Paul spinning in different ways? I don't remember that. You can see because of various vagaries of how scrolling works, the images don't force the auto scroll. And img, so I'll show you the code, and you can actually see what's happening as we do the various things. So the one thing that I wanted to talk about is why we're doing it this way with the Grease Monkey and the thing, rather than say setting up its own thing on like IRC, setting up like a customized IRC client or something like that. And there's a reason. The reason for that is a couple of things. One, I don't know very much about IRC, and I do know a fair amount about JavaScript and CSS. So you use what you know. The other thing is that by using the actual, like the sort of built-in Twitch chat, we get a lot of stuff for free. So we get sort of for free, but it means that we get, for instance, emotes. The actual text that comes through in like an IRC client for the emote would be like, LRR creepy left or whatever the actual thing is. And Twitch does a thing on its end where it replaces the text with the emote. So if you were re-implementing this in your own IRC client, you would have to re-implement that functionality yourself as well. And obviously there are lots and lots of emotes, and so that actually can be kind of a pain in the butt. We did do that, or I did that one year. We had an IRC client, and I had it loaded with the Twitch, like the actual like sort of basic Twitch emotes and the loading ready run emotes, but not the sort of universal emotes, which was kind of a pain in the butt. Because otherwise you're sort of doing a search for like 10,000 different possible strings, right? Like it's actually surprisingly tricky find and replace to find all the emotes and replace them with things. The other reason is situations where, like, for instance, somebody gets, if somebody is, trolling the chat or whatever, coming in and doing something nefarious, and the mods time them out, or delete them or ban them or whatever, by using the default Twitch chat, they disappear in the same way, or they get grayed out in the same way as you would when you're using the Twitch chat, whereas in IRC, they'll stay on screen with whatever text that they had. So that's a pain in the butt too. So there are, obviously the big problem is that, the big downside to doing it this way is that, this is a lot more, I guess, intensive, sort of processor intensive, and it's doing a lot more work in order to make this happen than you would do with like an IRC client or something. But it seems to work out okay. I mean, we have a chat monitor running on just a Raspberry Pi. I mean, it's a new Raspberry Pi, but still. And it seems to operate no problem. So, yeah. Stuff like the, basically now, like I said, the formatting of this is obviously specific to our needs, for loading ready run stuff. So the kinds of things it does is it removes, so it basically is, what we're trying to do is strip it down to fit the maximum amount of actual messages on screen as possible. So we're taking out all the badges, we're taking out all the icons, we're taking out the messaging, the actual thing where you write messages at the bottom, because obviously for a chat monitor we don't need that, and that's just wasted space. We're taking out the header part that says what channel you're in. That's being removed at the top. We are taking out, and we're also, if you notice, taking out all the colors. And the reason why we're taking those out is that it's just distracting and generally not necessary. And it also means that we can then use colors for our own purposes. So if you've probably seen, as we've been going through here, say so you see LRRTech is in purple there, and like mods are in blue, and stuff that loading ready run says is in is also in sort of a dark blue highlighted. And like for Desert Bus, we have a different set of, and people who mentioned loading ready run have a little highlight too. And like for Desert Bus, I will probably put in some extra rules in terms of like if somebody says the word, exclamation point bid in their message, it'll be highlighted because obviously that's really important for us to see. Or if somebody says, or when BidBot is saying something. So that's the kind of thing that we need to that you can do, and you can and that's all customizable. So for you at home, you might care about different things than we care about in terms of what should be highlighted in the chat and what not. So you can change that to your heart's content, and I'll hopefully show you how to do that right now. So that gave you just a quick, I hope that explained how to install this. Pretty straightforward, and you can see the other, so you can see we have the IMG tag there, and then there's also, as I mentioned before, we can say reverse. And if you say reverse, then it's going to start going from, it's going to insert new messages in the top instead of in the bottom, instead of below, which is better if you want to be looking at the top of the screen. Now, those of you who watch the AFK streams, I think, or maybe it was Tinker Tailor. Anyway, we were talking about this chat thing, and I was saying and I've actually changed the way this reversing is done. Originally, the way I did it, and I did it this way partially because I originally made this about 4 years ago, is that in order, because it's surprisingly difficult to make it, to reverse the direction, to make it so that it inserts new stuff on top rather than below. You sort of, it's a difficult, you sort of have to intercept the addition and change where it's going to be. So what I ended up doing is rotating the entire, so you can, using CSS, you can say, you can rotate the entire window, basically. Like you can say rotate this whole thing 180 degrees, and then rotate each line 180 degrees. So basically it rotated the whole thing 180 degrees, so it was all upside down. And then it rotated each individual line 180 degrees, so they were back up, but it did the same, so that they were all upright but going the opposite direction. So that, obviously that's a pretty extreme hack. And what I've done now to instead is using a relatively new CSS thing called flex boxes. Basically, it allows me to do that. It allows me to essentially what I'm doing is when I'm reversing it, I'm telling the window that it is actually displaying right to left text, like Japanese or like Arabic. It's displaying. So I'm saying, oh yeah, you're totally displaying right to left text, which means that it displays in the opposite direction. Anyway, that's just kind of funny. Frankly, I feel like this is a more efficient way of doing it rather than the double flipping. Maybe that's not actually the way. Maybe it is. The double flipping is actually a better way to do it. But I don't know. Flex boxes seem like the more new way that's more efficient. Okay. So let's look at what's actually happening in the code, and hopefully that will help you understand if you want to change things yourself. So let me zoom in on this a little bit. Hopefully that's relatively legible for you folks. Okay. So this part at the top is just information about the file. Now we're using two third-party external scripts. The first one is called jQuery. That's just it's sort of a toolbox script that helps. It's not totally necessary for this, but it just simplifies a lot of the manipulation of the page stuff, and it's a very, very common script. And you can see it's so common that I'm actually loading it from Google provides it for people to use, even though Google doesn't make it. It's so common on the internet that Google was like, we'll mirror it ourselves because everyone needs it. And then the other thing is this little bit, wait for key elements, and this is actually a link to another GitHub thing. I could actually like copy this text and put it in myself, but it's just as easy to do it this way. And this is a little script that somebody else wrote. Let me put it up for you. It's a little script that somebody else wrote, and basically what it does is it tells my script not to start running until the Twitch chat has finished loading, because the Twitch chat obviously has a bunch of stuff that does, when you, for yourself, when you're at home, when you load Twitch chat, there'll be that little spinning wheel for a sec. It'll say like connecting or whatever. Because Twitch is doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. It's connecting to its own servers. It's loading up various extra files and things. And if we start firing our script before the Twitch chat has actually loaded, our script won't have anything to access and it'll get confused. So this is, for asking which language, this is JavaScript. So basically all this does is, this is a little script that somebody wrote that allows you to, that gives you a function that makes your script wait for something else to appear on the page before it starts moving. Now, this here, the reason why this is so sort of, I guess, obfuscated, you might say, is because this is just this is a little, just a very simple little thing that I wrote, and I wanted to keep it as, I wanted to basically make it so you didn't have to pay that much attention to it, because it's all this is a little. This is just a little regular expression here that parses the query string. That I was saying, the thing about the you put display, you put question mark display to activate the thing, and then you put like the IMG and the reverse and that kind of stuff. So all we need something that'll actually read that and parse it out, so to make sure we have the different chunks. This is not the most complete, perfect query string parser, but it's a very sort of quick, short way of doing it, and it works for our purposes. So what we're doing here, so first we get that query string. So then, okay, so this is where things actually start. So what we're doing here, we're using that wait for key elements thing that we were talking about there. And so we're waiting for chat lines, which is the enclosing element for everything in the chat. And then so we're waiting. So once the chat has loaded and that chat lines element is available, then we can start doing things. And what we're going to do here is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the reverse function, the reverse thing in the query string has been turned on. So if reverse is in the query string, then all we're going to do is add a class. So this is we're going to add a class to the element so that we can use CSS to do some stuff there to do the reversing it to make it to make it start from the top instead of the bottom. And then so now what we have to do here is, and this is where things get a little bit silly, because basically what we have to do is, what's happening is we have the chat, and new lines are being added to the chat as they come in from, as people write them and as Twitch processes them. New lines are being added to the chat, right? And so what we are going to do as the sort of hackers overriding this is we're using what's called a mutation observer, and in this context, mutation just means a change. So we're setting up a thing so that we're going to watch for a change. We're going to watch for any changes to the document, and whenever we see a change, we are going to basically intercept that change and make we're going to intercept that addition to the document and make some changes to it before it actually gets added to the document, or just after it gets added to the document. So so what we're going to do here is, so the Ember view is the class that each line is given as we when they're added to the document. And so, and I can actually show you that if I go so if we open the chat here, and I can do open up the inspector. Let me just pop this out, and whoop, doop, boop, boop. You can see that. So we're waiting for this line here, chat line. I hope this is big enough to be visible. Can I? Yeah. And then within chat lines, we see we've got all these lines here. We've got, and as people are typing things, new lines are being added to the document, and each of these has a class that's Ember view. So what we're saying is we're looking for any changes to the document, but we only care if they're changes that have the Ember view class. So we can ignore any other ones. So now what we're going to do is we're going to mess around with it a bunch. So we're going to do a bunch of stuff that basically adds what are sometimes called hooks that we can then reference in our CSS file. And if you're not familiar with CSS or JavaScript and stuff, this might be a little bit complicated, but we'll try to go through this relatively quickly. So what we're going to do is add, and I shouldn't have closed the, oh, I didn't close it. Ha! So you can see here, if I do that same inspect to our sort of our chat monitor fixed, our temper monkey fixed version of the chat, you can see that there's the message line just as there were before, but there are a bunch of extra. So like if I go, this is what it looks like just from Twitch. This is what it looks like after I've messed with it. So you can see each line has had some extra pieces added to it. It's got this special attribute called data user, which says the user that made this message. It's got this line called data badges, which contains all of the badges that user might have. You can see T.S. Dodden has a 2-year subscriber badge and a Cheer 1000 badge. And there's also the data message attribute, which says the actual content of this message. And so by adding those into the by adding those attributes into each message, it means that we can later go in and target each line with our CSS. So what's so now that's what these lines here are doing. So what we're doing here is we're finding the user of the message and we're adding it in to that data user attribute. Here we're finding all the badges that the person has, and we're adding it to that data badges attribute with commas in between it. And here we are finding the we're getting the message that they sent, getting the text of that message. There's a little bit of a replacement here in case like they've posted like a bunch of emotes and stuff, or a bunch of or links or things. We don't want those to be added into the attribute of our document because it could start messing things up. And then we're also making it lowercase just to make it easier to target later on. And then there's the other part here, which is the as we talked about with the IMG query string, where we can do inline images. And the way I'm currently doing that, and I'm not saying this is the best way to do it. In fact, this is probably not the best way to do it. But what I'm currently doing for that is all I do is I look for anything that comes in. So as we're going through these messages that come, as the messages come in, we are looking for yeah, I guess a filter before each would make the obsolete. Yeah, that's probably correct. So the as the messages come in, we're looking for anything that has GIF, JPEG, or PNG at the ending of it, because they come in as links. And then we're going to take those and then replace the link with the image that is linking to, such as this. So you can see in the actual chat, that's what that looks like. It just shows up as the link to whatever.png, but in this version of it, it shows up like this. White on white for me in the chat monitor. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. May have to mess with that. Anyway, So the downside, so obviously, the one of the big things that this doesn't work with is there's lots of images that don't actually end in IMG or end in GIF or whatever. Like if they're like image hosting service or whatever, they won't have that in the end. But I don't know. This is sort of an easy way of doing it. Okay, and the last part of this is something that has annoyed me for a really long time, actually. And I was able to figure out how to get it to work properly. So this is and if I go into this, here again, you can see every other line is given this odd class, or this class, which is odd, which again I can then target with a CSS rule to highlight that, so we get the zebra striping. Now, something that somebody talked about before we went online is that you don't have to do the you don't have to do the CSS the class. You can just look for the odd number, and I'll actually show you what the reason why I'm doing that. Let's see if we can do that. Let's see if this will actually show up properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off that odd. Okay, so I have turned that off. So now it's not zebra striping anymore. Now I'm going to add in the normal way, the sort of easy way that you would do this, and the way that most people do this. Let me just whatever. Go up here. Okay, so we're going to say what's the? I'm going to say dot chat line, and it's was there nth. Nth child. Yeah, odd. And we're going to say background color gray. So now we have I think this worked. I think this is how it needs, or how it dot chat line nth child odd background color gray. Wait, why is it only doing it on some of them? Ah, here we go. Yeah. I think so. The problem with this, oh, I see. People are posting images. It's confusing me. Okay. Yeah. So we're using nth child now, and what that does is it just goes through the whole document and says every other line make it gray in this case. Now, the problem with this is that how chat works, or how the Twitch chat works, is that it starts deleting lines from the past. So that's why you can't scroll back infinitely in Twitch chat, because that would take up a lot of memory. So you can see, as we're going here, what color a line is. The lines, or the gray lines, stay in the same place on the page, and the text that people write moves down the page, but like each particular line, each particular piece of text doesn't stay the same color as it goes down the page. And so that actually makes it that's actually kind of hard to read, or not harder to read, but it's not as good as if the lines were. Well, yeah, the purple is hard to read. This is not the correct color of. So instead of that, what I'm doing is actually applying the class. And now, as you can see, the color of a particular piece of text stays all the way down. Mangled pixel, I do not believe so. Because the problem is the number of whether a particular piece of text, whether a particular message is odd or even in the overall page changes as stuff is added and reversed from the as stuff is removed from the bottom and added to the top, right? So anyway, that's just one of those stupid little things that is actually a huge pain in the ass. Yeah, text shadow might help with other colors, and you can mess with other stuff. So anyway, now actually, and I've talked about this before. I'm sure there are bugs in my code, and a couple of people mentioned things that I should look at. Part of the reason why I'm doing this LRRTech, and part of the reason is because I want to, and part of the reason why I put it up on GitHub and everything for you guys to look at is, one, so that you can look at it and you can get it and use it yourself. But also, I totally expect that there are bugs in my code, or that there are not even bugs, but improvements that could be made to my code to make it more flexible. So that all you have to do, so if you have any improvements, feel free to either fork it or do a pull request and stuff. I'm not that familiar with how GitHub does this stuff, but whatever the case, I'm totally up for if you've got stuff that you want to change. All right, so and so I can show you. So we did all this stuff. So we're adding all these different things. But if all that JavaScript add all these different things won't do anything unless we also have the CSS to go with it, so the style sheet to go with it. And that's the other part of this. So if you just installed the default version of, like, the version that's on this page, you can see right here, I don't know why I made that smaller. See right here, it's loading 2 CSS files from this repository, which means that it'll look the way you've seen here. If you want to customize it yourself, you would want to copy these CSS things to either your own computer or to somewhere else, and then change these links to point to somewhere else, so that you can use your own CSS file. And I'll just quickly show you some of the stuff that's being done with the CSS file to change things. So one thing we're doing is we are adding in we're putting in a different font. And what that does, So you know, we're using that condensed font, and that's literally, we're using a condensed font so we can fit more words on the screen, on a given screen, because usually we do the chat monitor in a vertical configuration, like a portrait configuration. And so a condensed font allows us to show more words on the screen while still having it very legible. So we don't have to we can make the text large but narrow. And so you can see one of the big things here is you can see most of these CSS properties have this important exclamation point important beside them. And what that's doing is that because we're trying to override the built-in styles for this for the Twitch CSS, we're adding this important here to make sure that our style comes first. We are the most important. That's basically what that means. Generally, when you're writing CSS like for your own web page, you shouldn't be putting in a lot of those the sort of important things. They're kind of a hack. But in this particular circumstance, they're very useful. So, various things we're doing here. We're saying chat header, display none. So we're saying don't display the chat header. Chat interface, we're also saying display none. So don't display the chat interface. And that's the part that's the actual message area. So if, for instance, you wanted to show the message area so you could still type, you could make your own CSS document that didn't have this line in it. And that would make it so that appears. This is a little bit of addition to make it for the reverse, to make the auto scrolling work the reverse. So you can see we're doing making everything black. Just especially for the chat monitor, making a black background makes it easier to read and stuff. Also, it's a plasma screen. The monitor that we have for our chat is like a plasma, so we don't want to have it like white all the time. And then, yeah, you can see here's where we're doing the odd stuff. So we're giving it a little bit of a background, slightly different background color, giving it a lines on top and bottom. Here's where we are saying don't display the mod icons, which are like little like ban and whatever, mute and ban and information stuff. We're saying don't display badges. If there are images, make them the full width of the window. So we want images nice and big, but not bigger than the window, or else it'll mess up the formatting. This is where we're saying we're going to override the text color that people have specified, and we're just going to make it all green. And here's deleted. This is when like somebody gets timed out and removed. So what we're saying, when somebody gets deleted there, we're just going to make their message almost transparent, so it doesn't show up anymore. And we're going to say don't display the scroll bar, because if we need to scroll, we can just use the scroll wheel. We don't want to, again, we're just trying to save as much space as possible. And then I decided to split out, so those are sort of the basic formats. And then I decided to split out the user-specific highlighting. So this is where we start to use a bunch of those classes, or the data attributes that we added. So you can see here, I made a CSS rule here that says if the person has moderator in their badges line, then make their name, which is the dot from, this color, which happens to be that blue. And we're going to say the broadcaster, so in this case, loading ready run, if the broadcaster says anything, make their background color blue, and make their background color a dark blue, and make their text sort of a lighter blue. You can say if LRRTech says anything, make its color purple. When LRRTech puts in a message, like a thank you message, make that purple, just to highlight that nicer. If somebody actually mentions loading ready run, give that a little bit of a background color. So you can see these are all things. So again, you could change this. You could say, instead of making LRRTech purple, I want to make whatever. I want to make, you know, I want to make it so that I highlight Rebellious Uno's posts. And so I could say Rebellious Uno always be bright red, if you wanted to. So you could customize this to whatever you want. These are just what we use. And like I said, for Desert Bus, I'll probably be using different customizations here. Like for instance, we can customize it so that if you find exclamation point bid in the name, or even if the line starts with bid, then we're gonna highlight it specially. Yes, the other thing you could do is, yeah, you could make it so that somebody's posts are transparent, as in their opacity is 0, so they don't show up at all. If you wanted to do that. I'm not saying you should do that to Rebellious Uno, but you could. Alrighty, so I hope that gives you kind of an idea of what we're talking about. I know I kind of jumped around a bunch there. Megapixel, that is a good idea, actually. Again, viewport height units were something that didn't really exist when I was first setting this up, but that is something that would be handy for the new setup. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. So, you know, there's all sorts of customizations that you can add. And in order to improve the stuff. One aspect of this, and part of why I need your help, well, not, the part of why I need, why it's helpful to have other people work on this is that anything that I don't see, so that like if a particular circumstance doesn't show up when I'm looking at the chat, I won't know to override that. Style, display none, data thing. Yeah, and Aaron, yeah, in order to avoid exactly the thing that you're doing there, that's why I'm using, if you go to, if you see in here, I'm using the text function of jQuery, which escapes special characters like that. So it sanitizes things like quotation marks and opening and closing brackets and stuff. So, yay. Because, yeah, obviously that would be good. I'm not saying that there's no way to break this. I'm sure there is, but... okay, I'm going to take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, if this is of interest to people, we can try and look at what would be involved in modifying this or making a new version of this for the new Twitch chat, the Twitch chat beta, which again looks almost exactly the same as the current or old Twitch chat, depending on what you're doing, but again, the code behind the scenes is entirely different. So I'll be back in just a few minutes. Hey everybody, we are back. Well, I'm back, and I hope you are too. So, what we're gonna do right now, and so hopefully the first part of this was useful to you. If this is something that you want to have on your own system. Yeah, that kind of crackled when I came up back on. Hopefully it's not crackling anymore. By the way, from what I understand, there's been a few issues with the mic levels being way too high, or sort of peaking out the levels in the streams for the last couple days. I think I figured out why, and that reason is that Windows decided to arbitrarily increase the input gain for no reason, because that's something that Windows does occasionally. It sometimes makes it higher or lower for no reason, because Windows. Hashtag blame Windows. Okay, so I hope the first part of this was useful if you want to install this, and if you missed that first part, I would suggest going or watching the replay or whatever. What we're gonna try to do now is make a, I guess you could call it a fork or a new version, an additional version of this, I guess, or another version of the same software to do the exact same thing, except with the beta / new version of the Twitch chat. Now, this is a little bit dangerous because, assuming that the term beta means that it's still in development, it's possible that it could change, before it actually goes online. But before it sort of is finalized. But that's always the danger with these kind of things. And when we're sort of extremely unsupported hacking of their interface, such is the way of things. So, let's take a look at this. Let me just pull up the beta Twitch chat. So again, I'm going to go to the right corner. Sure. So this chat, you can see here, while it may look very similar to the chat you saw, or to the regular chat that you see, you'll see up here the URL that I'm at is, normally I wouldn't have the display thing. So normally the URL I'm at is go.twitch.tv/popout/loadingreadyrun/chat, which is the new URL for the pop-out chat, apparently. I don't know why it's go.twitch.tv. It's like, yes, I wish to go. I wish to go to Twitch TV. So if you remember some of the layout of what the old Twitch chat was like in terms of the actual markup of the file, you'll see that this is a little bit different. Not hugely different, but I believe the old system was using a JavaScript framework called Ember. It's not something I've actually used that much before, but I'm inferring that by the fact that it had the word Ember written all throughout it with weird things. Whereas this does not appear to have that. You can see here we've got the classes are stuff like chatline _ message, which obviously there's some sort of, and there has this React empty things. So, and data a target chat line message. I don't know what all this stuff is. And the cool thing about this is we don't actually care it doesn't actually matter that much what system they're using to set their stuff up. As long as it's producing a consistent markup, which it is, then we can get our grubby little mitts into it and mess with it. If you have the React DevTools plugin, you can see even more info. Oh, that's kind of... I mean, React is the new hotness, I guess, so... yes, okay, so, and as... I guess it's not the new hotness. It was the new hotness at one point. It's probably no longer cool. I don't know. I can't keep up with these things. Let's, Is that it? No, wrong one. Okay. So, let's do, so first thing we need to do is, it's bigger, okay. Hopefully that's relatively visible for you. We're going to change this line right here. So right now, this is looking for the www.twitch.tv chat. So I've specifically made this. So this is what URLs the code, the Tamper Monkey code is actually going to run on. So instead of that one, which I've specifically made so that it won't run on the beta thing, let's do this one instead. So we're going to go twitch.tv/popout, and then rather than loading ready run, we can just put an asterisk in there. So that'll be any page, like it doesn't only run on loading ready run, it'll run on whatever channel you want it to run on. All right, and then display has to be in there to do a thing. Okay. Problem solved. Now, the other thing here is you can see I've changed the resource things. And so now instead of linking to my the GitHub here, they're linking to files on this computer, which happens to be called Gaming PC, as you can see, because it is the gaming PC. All other PCs are only for work. And I'm actually putting it, I'm actually putting it in my Dropbox so that I can easily synchronize it. So this could be, wherever. And as with the other one, once I get this working, either on the stream or later on, I will put this up on the GitHub. So let's start here. So first line, this stuff is all fine. Blah 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 blah. That's just the the stuff for the query string. So the key element here that we're waiting for is probably different now. So all you have to do is so if you were wanting to do this, not necessarily even for Twitch, but so this I've been using this a bunch, and if you don't know about this, it's amazing. Or one of the very cool things with newer browsers is you can do this inspect. Let me do it so it's not behind my head. Inspect. Boop. And you can see the code of the page you're on and do all sorts of fun stuff with them. So in this case, the thing, what we want to wait for, like the sort of parent element to thing, appears to be, So we've got the chat welcome message, and then we have a bunch of chat lines. And those are all inside a thing called full height, which is not a terribly descriptive name, which is inside simple bar. It would be nice if we could actually, here we go. There's chat list lines. So why don't we say, just because I don't know, like full height might be used other places in this, so I don't want to mess this up by doing that. So what we'll do is we'll say wait for the chat line, so dot chat list underscore lines full height, I guess, is the best lock there. So what we're saying here, this is the this is using jQuery. We're going to look for, we're going to wait until there is a full height element inside the chat list underscore lines element. So now it is going to do that. And then, yes, that should be what we need. Do we have to change anything else here? Yes, okay. So now for the reversing, so now that that's happened, we're going to need to do a reverse. Let's just comment this out for this moment. We'll figure out how to do the reversing later. Okay, what nodes? What is the? Where do we want to start looking for when things are being added? So again, this will be the same place, because that seems to be where new lines are being added. Chat line, the zero here, what we're saying is we're using jQuery to get this node in our, to get this element. And then the 0 here is just saying get the real, not the jQuery specific element, but get the real one, get the DOM, what's called the DOM node, so that we can give it to the observer. Don't really have to mess with that too much, but anyway, okay. So now we can go here, we can do this, go through the stuff so basically what we need to do here is just change a bunch of these sort of keywords for what it's, so it's not looking for the old stuff or looking for the setup in the new old thing, it's looking for the new. Agile Mania, that is not true actually. It's kind of, jQuery is a little confusing that way. If you wanted to get the first result from a jQuery thing, you actually want to do like EQ0, like that. The first element of the jQuery object, or the first element of a given jQuery thingamajiggy is the original, a reference back to the original DOM node. Anyway, because what jQuery returns with when there's a list of DOM nodes is not actually an array. It is a bunch of jQuery. It is like an object, I guess. I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so we don't have these Ember View things anymore. So what we're going to do is the things we want to look for are these chat line message. Apparently that's what we want. So has class chat line message. I feel like jQuery is kind of making the best of a bad situation. It's better than the alternative. I don't know. Once you get it, it definitely helps things a lot. I guess the fact that it's counterintuitive, that some of the stuff in jQuery is counterintuitive, and yet it's still very helpful, shows you how messed up the rest of JavaScript stuff is. Anyway, all right. So has class chat line message. Okay. And then let's actually just kill all this. Let's just comment all this out right now too. Because basically what we want to do, like this is all some, the specific stuff for adding in these things. But basically we just want to make sure that all this, that our code here is going to work properly. So let's just start with this, with our odd zebra striping. Because that's, if we can get that to work, then that's a pretty good indication that the whole system is operational or operating the way it should. And if you notice that this is a little bit fancy. So what we did over here, what we're doing over here is as these nodes come in, we're saying add these elements to it. Add the attributes to it so that we can lock into them. Here, what we're doing is instead of as each element comes in, look at the element before it and find out whether it's odd or even. This is actually after some testing that I did. Just the way that Twitch, at least now, this may not be the case for the beta, the new Twitch client, but at least the way Twitch used to work is that when messages are coming in very fast, it batches them up and sends them out in bunches. And we may need to do some testing on this to see if it does this with the beta client. But what that means is that you can't always rely that you're only getting one message in every single pass of this. So what I'm doing here is grabbing the last 10 lines and then doing the check on the last 10 lines, just in case it sent more than one line at a time. It's not the most efficient way, but as we've talked about, it's what we got. So again, we're going to go, in this case, we're going to say replace and review with the chat line message and replace So what we're saying here is we're going to look for chat line messages that are a direct. What this is a special CSS thing. This says we're looking for chat line messages that are a direct that are children, which like they're the direct descendant of this full height, and that's inside the chat list lines. So. And then we're going to say slice 10, so we're going to take the last 10 of those, and then we're just going to go through and say if the previous one has odd, when we're going to go through each of those and say, look at the one above it. If it's odd, do nothing. If it doesn't have the odd class, we're going to add the odd class. So that'll do every other one. So let's save this. And let's give this a shot. So we're going to say pop out. So we have to add the display here in order to actually activate this. Let's see what happens. So right now the CSS is not affecting anything, which is why it doesn't look like it's changed at all. But if we go into the code here, you can see, boop, it's putting in those odd classes. These classes are rather odd, which is yay! So it's working. Now, the reason why it's not actually changing anything is, so now we have to do the other part. I won't say the hard part, but maybe the hard part. So we got to figure out, again, we're going to be going through and figuring out what we have to change to make this work properly, to make the CSS happen. So basically, what we can do here is just go through and look at what we want to change. So in this case, so we see like chat header. So we don't want to display the chat header. So we can say, you know, don't display it. Oh, we may be okay. We might have to do a little bit fancy here. Okay, so you can see these are what the this is what the classes that are currently implemented on, say, the chat header are. And then so we can try to figure out what we need to do in order to override this. Now, I can see here that we're going to run into a problem. And I'm a little confused as to why this is the case. But if I just went in here and said display none, like I did previously, like if I say, here, let me just even put that in right now. If I say chat header display none, notice nothing happened. The chat header is still being displayed, even though I told it not to be. Now, the reason for that is, so you go, oh, well, it's because because we're not overriding it properly. We can say important, and it goes away. Oh, actually, that actually did work to go away because, interesting. So we can tell that that's important. It's so the issue that I think we're going to run into here is you can see that a lot of the default CSS attributes that are being applied, CSS rules that are being applied to these things are also using the important directive, which is interesting. I don't know why they would like I said, normally when you're writing CSS that you can control all of the CSS, you shouldn't be using important like that, because then you need to because if you're controlling everything, you can actually just set up your what's called the cascade properly so that you don't need to use important. The fact that they have used important throughout this is just kind of annoying, because that makes it so that it's a little bit more difficult for us to override their controls. But anyway, so chat header display none important, we can do that. So we're just basically replacing the old one with that one. So the other thing that we want to remove is the message part, which in this case is called chat input, which is with a hyphen, not with the double underscores, which is interesting also. So again, we can test this. We can say chat input display none important, And that seems to have worked there as well. So let's put that in. So it's now called chat input instead of chat interface. Perhaps they are attempting to stop us from messing with it, but that's not going to, it's not going to work, I guess. It's not going to stop us. Okay. We're just going to have to be more important. All right, what else do we want to change? We want to remove, let's say we want to remove these badges. So chat badge. So again, we can test it. So this is the little sidebar here just allows you to quickly apply a CSS class to the document in a sort of non-destructive way, I guess, or okay, so we can see here, so there's a thing called this class chat badge, but that's actually just the image. The image has a class of chat badge. We want to remove the entire chat badge. This data a target chat badge looks like is what we need to actually remove. So let's try, what if we do target equals chat badge. And we say that display none. Okay. That didn't work. Because you can see right here, it is being given display inline importantly. What if we say, yeah, that's right, we are more important. Goodbye, chat badges. Technically, actually, you don't need quotes, but it's probably a good practice to put that in. The other thing that we can do, so the two ways that you can override the styles, let's put the div in there just to be extra nice. The two ways that you can override a style, badges, display none, is that you can add that important, but if you can't, like if the thing you're trying to override is already important, the way to override it is you can be more specific, more precise, I guess. More if you make it more if you make the rule more specific, then that can override the previous one. Maybe you wouldn't want mod badges, or maybe you want mod badges. I like the way of just changing the color of it instead. Let's also, you can see, the other thing I want to do here is let's just, you can see these have padding given to them. I just want to let's just take all of those and say we want them to be let's see, I don't know what else. Okay, we want all of those to have less padding. In fact, let's say they're given 0.5 and 2. Let's say we want 0.5 and 0. So we still want the up and down padding probably. I don't know. What are rem units? There's all sorts of different units in CSS. All right. What else we got going on here? Let's look at making the font, getting the font and style and stuff the right color. Chat list lines. So what is overriding? Oh, yes. Okay. I'm going to save this. So one other thing that we have to make sure we're getting here, or make sure we're doing here, is that right now we're trying to access these files off of our computer. And by default, TamperMonkey can't access those. We have to go into our extensions and say that TamperMonkey is allowed to access file URLs. Okay, let's just try that again. Okay. So I'm going to reload this and let's see where we get. Okay. We have our sweet compressed font. Now this did not get overridden properly. Like a poop. Beep, beep, I'm a sheep. Okay. Why did this not get overridden properly? Is it because all right, so you can see chat header display important is being overridden by this farther up. That's telling it to be a flexbox. So there's only one thing for it. So we've got to add more what's called specificity to this. So let's say, I wonder if we just add body. Oh, the input did actually go away, but just for... Okay, let's do that. Let's... oh, do I have... There we go. Okay, so now we are yeah, React would be quite unhappy if you tampered with its own. Yeah, we are messing with stuff. So anyway, you know, we can go back and forth on this for a bit. It's coming up to the end of this running out of time on this particular stream, because I don't want to get into the New Day Tuesday. But you can kind of see the process that we're going to go through here. So I'm going to be, it's sort of a testing thing. You say like, okay, this is the thing that I want to target. How do you target it? And then take it and change it. So anyway, like I said, the current setup is set for, should work for the Twitch, the non-beta Twitch, and I'll keep and I'll probably keep messing with this, and so that hopefully we have it ready to go for the beta. If not for Desert Bus, then at least, because I mean theoretically at some point Twitch will turn off the old one and make it so the beta is the default or the only thing you can access. So obviously you want to be prepared for that situation. But yeah, I hope this has been useful, and if not useful, then at least interesting or informative. And if not interesting or informative, then at least I hope that it has helped you sleep. And yeah, and like I said, if you have things that you want to change, or things that or improvements to the current chat display, feel free to let me know, and either through email or stuff, or actually through the GitHub interface. It's got the issue system and that kind of stuff. I'll try to monitor that as much as possible, and together perhaps we can improve it, and so we can make it so it will work better for everybody, because then everybody can, it won't just be us that gets a better chat. It'll be everybody who's using the chat. So that's cool. All right, I'm gonna just we'll go offline, and we will be back in just a few minutes, I think, with Call of Duty World War II. I'm excited. How is it gonna work out? How is World War II gonna end? The anticipation. All right. See you folks later. On Thursday, I guess, if not on 18 Games and Counting, if not before. All right. Bye. Oh, wait. I forgot the subs. I'm a terrible, terrible person. Gotta do that. Sorry, everybody. Starting with Phoenix Melior for 43 months. Desert Device Hapu. Kuroko King for 34 months. Yay for tech streams. Tracos ZG for 47 months. Codename 47 months. Bengineering for 9 months. Welcome to us. Photon Graph for 5 months. Desert Bunker 2017. Toidle for 44 months. CSS me like one of your French girls. Granite Fish for 32 months. Moose-filled Cat for 37 months. Hey Paul, gotta get that rare LRRTech sub. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Rebellious Uno for 21 months. I had to get to the old chat to share this. Thanks, Twitch. Occasionally Manly is a new subscriber. Welcome. Mr. Morpheus for 22 months. Dig into those data attributes. Oh, yeah. Sam Wonk for 16 months for joy in hard times. Thank you. And thanks for 1,000 bits, Andy the Drew. It's awesome. Sorry about that, everybody. I got so excited about doing stuff that I missed that. Yeah, but thank you to all the awesome people who subscribed and sent us those bits. And yeah, and if you are not subscribed to this channel, then you can also you can follow us, which would be great if you enjoy seeing not necessarily this kind of stuff, but all sorts of different things. And you can also check out replays of all the stuff, youtube.com/loadingreadylive and youtube.com/loadingreadyrun for various new funny things. I believe a crap shot just went up recently. All right. Thank you, everybody. Sorry about that. I am forgetful. Bye.